Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Lowe Connects. The distance between you and me is us, ArtLab at the Lowe 2021. We're very happy to have you with us this evening. It's going to be a really great program. And so I just wanted to welcome you first and foremost. Lowe Connects started about 1 year ago when the pandemic began. And so it's very fitting that we have this exhibition for you tonight that deals with the issue or the idea of social distance. Just a few housekeeping things, and I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Christina Larson. I am Andrew W. Mellon Fellow for academic engagement for both the Lowe Art Museum and the University of Miami. So before we get started, we've all been doing Zoom for a while, I imagine, but just a refresher. So we'll ask that you be muted throughout the program tonight. So the mute button is here, and then you're welcome to have your videos on or off. That's up to you. So stop video, that button is here on your Zoom controls. And then finally, if you come up with certain questions or comments during the presentations, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will get to them as we are able towards the end of the program tonight. You will receive a survey, lucky you. It only takes really less than 5 minutes, but we do want to receive your feedback from tonight's program in order to improve future Lowe Connects and other online programs. And just wanted to wish you all a very happy Earth Day. So perhaps today you planted a tree, recycled a bit, spent some time outside in beautiful Miami if you're here. But just happy Earth Day, happy Earth Week to all. And just to foreshadow, one of the works, or two of the works in the exhibition are Earth Art works. So one of the students will talk about those later in the program. And you know, it's important that we plug our next Lowe Connects to connect with you again. As I mentioned, Lowe Connects is our monthly program. It's an opportunity for us to connect with our University of Miami community, with our surrounding community, and really with people throughout the United States and across the globe. We've had people Zoom in with us in the past for our Lowe Connects programs. So next month on Thursday, May 13th at 5:30 will be the program, The Last Leonardo, the story of its recovery and conservation. And this is in reference to Leonardo's Salvator Mundi from 1499 to 1510 approximately, which surfaced in April of 2005 in New Orleans, and then became the most expensive painting at auction in 2017 with Christie's and the total amount was $450.3 million. But the subject of this program will be from a conservator's standpoint. Diane Modestini is a conservator who worked on the Salvator Mundi, who authored articles about her work on it. And so she'll be sharing her perspective at next month's Lowe Connects. And it's also special because next month marks our official 1-year anniversary. We started 1 year ago on May 14th with our first program. Next, I'd like to segue into the topic for tonight, which again is the distance between you and me is us, a virtual exhibition, ArtLab at the Lowe. And just as a reminder, ArtLab is an annual exhibition that is led by a University of Miami faculty member and students. It happens usually in the spring semester, and it's an opportunity for students to curate an exhibition from start to finish. Objects and artwork in these exhibitions are from the Lowe. They can be from Cuban Heritage Collection, from special collections, basically any cultural resources that are in the collections of University of Miami. Tonight's debut of this exhibition focuses on photography. And ArtLab at the Lowe would not be possible without the support of my colleagues at the Lowe, who I think almost every person on staff has had their hands in this project from start to finish as well. I'd also like to send a thank you to Stella M. Holmes, who has supported this program. And I'd also like to say hello to Dean Stampino, Dean Bacchus, and to Dean Ferris-Hill, who I believe are in the audience as well. So I'd like to take this opportunity to I will introduce Professor Dayak in a moment, but the students would like to introduce themselves to you to debut tonight's program. So Ebony, would you like to begin?
Hi everyone, my name is Avani and I'll be graduating this May with a BS in computer science and a second major in studio art, focusing on graphic design. And I've always been interested in both the sciences and the arts, hence my majors. And I've been able to explore the intersection of those two as part of the Da Vinci program here at UM. I've always loved to paint and to design, but I really only fell in love with art history when I wrote about the Larry Bell exhibition at the ICA for a contemporary art class with Professor Dayak in my sophomore year, which led me to add art history as a minor. Thank you all for coming, and I really hope you guys enjoy our exhibition.
All right, thanks, Ebony. Next, Sarah, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Decosard, and I will be graduating this summer with a BA in anthropology and studio art, as well as a minor in Africana studies. I've always loved being creative, but I do credit the start of my love for the visual arts on my attendance at Walnut Hill School for the Arts for high school. I currently primarily paint, but I've always been curious about the decisions made regarding finished artwork behind the scenes in museums and galleries. And I truly enjoyed gaining this insight through ArtLab this semester. Thank you all for coming.
All right, thanks so much, Sarah. Robert, you're next.
Yes, hello. My name is Robert Govards. My major is art history. I retired early, as you can tell by my gray hair, from a career in international financial services to pursue other interests. Having always been interested in the humanities and having studied political science and law in my youth, I wanted to use my retirement years to increase my understanding and appreciation of our human past and its relationship to our present through experiencing, studying, and enjoying art. One of humanity's, I think, most creative and ubiquitous activity. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. And Mary, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Jimenez. I graduate next spring with majors in international studies, Latin American studies, and art history. Growing up, my parents always took me to museums in the cities we visited while traveling. And
Mary, you've been muted.
oh, sorry. I'll start over.
Okay.
I graduate, my name is Mary Jimenez. I graduate next year with majors in international studies, Latin American studies, and art history. Growing up, my parents always took me to museums in the cities we visited while traveling. And today, one of the first things I do when planning a trip is look for museums. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. And that's a good idea. Very good. Niharika, you're next.
Hi, I'm Niharika. I'm graduating next year in 2022. I'm majoring in neuroscience and art history, which I've been told is a strange combination, but I fell in love with an art history class that I took in high school, so I decided to double major in neuroscience and art history in college. And I love painting, so I hoped that studying art history would allow me to enhance my understanding and appreciation of various art forms. Thank you.
All right, wonderful, thank you. And Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Magnetti. I'll be graduating in 2023 with an MFA in ceramics. I graduated with a BFA in ceramics and sculpture way back in 2009. And after that, I started a career with the Forest Service as a wildland firefighter. And I stayed with that for 11 years. Most recently, I was working with at-risk youth and using firefighting as a method or a tool for mentorship. I'd use the winter months to make art, travel, and work as a set dresser on TV shows in the film industry. Most recently, my largest credit would be working on a Paramount show called Yellowstone. In 2009, I decided to continue my education in art and pursue a master's degree with the hopes of re-engaging with the art world full-time. So I prepared a portfolio, and I was honored last year to receive a scholarship here at the University of Miami. And this would be my first year of the program.
All right, thanks, Anthony. That's quite a diverse array of backgrounds. So thanks for sharing all that. Danielle, you're next.
Hi, I'm Danielle Stoller. I'll be graduating in the spring of 2022, and I'm currently pursuing a BBA in finance and art history, and I also have a minor in economics. I've always had a deep appreciation for art, and being able to work with the department for 3 years now, it's really encouraged me to want to build a career in this industry. And after graduating, I hope to attend law school and practice art law one day. And thank you guys for joining us.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, Danielle. And now I'd like to introduce Professor Heather Dayak, who spearheaded this project and worked with these wonderful students this past semester. Heather Dayak is an associate professor of art history at the University of Miami. She writes on modern and contemporary art with an emphasis on photography, visual culture, conceptual practices, and social conflict. Dayak is the author of Documents of Doubt regarding the photographic conditions of conceptual art, published by the University of Minnesota Press in 2020, which was awarded a Wyeth Foundation and American Art Publication grant. She's also the co-author of Global Photography, A Critical History from Routledge from also 2020. She's active as an art critic and has received numerous awards and fellowships, including the Ansel Adams Research Fellowship at the Center for Creative Photography in Tucson, a visiting research fellowship at the Henry Moore Institute for the Study of Sculpture in Leeds, England, and a Terra Foundation for American Art visiting professorship at the John F. Kennedy Institute of North American Studies at the Freie Universität Berlin. And I'd like to pass the virtual mic over to Professor Dayak.
Thank you, Christina. I want to begin with a tremendous amount of thanks. Thank you to everyone joining us tonight to celebrate the launch of The Distance Between You and Me Is Us. The past year has been unusual and unpredictable on many levels. And as a class, we decided to embrace this uncertainty while also attuning ourselves to the anxieties of our moment. Taking seriously the notion of a laboratory as a space of inquiry and experimentation, the students thought self-reflexively about the role of the curator, the importance of art writing. They studied the Lowe Art Museum's vast photography holdings, looked closely at images, conceptualized recurrent themes, researched individual artists and subject matter in relationship to contemporary contexts, and refined their writing skills, their art writing skills in particular. During the semester, we were fortunate to have guest visits by a handful of impressive experts in the field, namely Denise Reiner, director and curator of the Ur Gallery Vancouver and research fellow at the Haus der Kulturen der Welt in Berlin, Sam Ramos, the associate director of innovation and creativity at the Art Institute of Chicago, David Campany, curator, writer, and managing director of programs at the International Center of Photography in New York, and Catherine Bassard, the Peter C. Bunnell, curator of photography at the Princeton University Art Museum. We are grateful as a class to their tremendous generosity, and thank you each for sharing your expertise, humor, and professional insight. Ultimately cohering in an exhibition designed, installed, and launched on a digital exhibition platform, ArtLab owes a great deal of thanks to the input, technical skill set, and support of the Art Museum staff. I want to thank Dr. Jill Dupy for her continuous stewardship of ArtLab and her collaboration with the art history program at UM. Special thanks are also due to Dr. Christina Larson, who in every instance went above and beyond duty, providing a model of organization, professionalism, and encouragement. Thank you to Mark Osterman, without whom we literally would not have an exhibition, for his patience and talent. Thank you to the sharp eyes and guidance of Eugenia Inser, Ebony Pollock, Chris Rogers, who worked on the design of our catalog, as well as to, and there's so many, Bridget O'Brien, Jody Cipher, Gina Ballarazzo, Emily Ludermilk, and Amanda Belli. I am appreciative of the entire staff of the Lowe for their collective assistance. Okay. Finally, the success of this year's Art Lab as a seminar and as an exhibition is due above all to the engagement, openness, and concentrated efforts of the student curators, who thoughtfully worked through many ideas and photographs, beginning with over 1,800 and whittling it down to 35. I am grateful to each of you for your willingness to embark on this reflective and research-based project. Your combined curiosity and perspective recenters a social and aesthetic commitment to foregrounding plurality and interrelationships at a time when it is greatly needed. The distance between you and me is us brings together photographs around the theme of social distance as a means of thinking through the deep social shifts of the recent past, as well as images from the historic past take on new resonance in light of the present. Indeed, the many layers of disconnection in contemporary life and their continual renegotiation through images recalls what Susan Sontag's assessment of photography was in 1973, and I quote, "What is surreal is the distance imposed and bridged by the photograph, the social distance and the distance in time." The distance between you and me and us, between you and me is us, considers the push and pull dynamic of photographs, how they can simultaneously suggest connectedness and separateness, solitude and community, particularly in relation to current crises, including the global pandemic, racial injustice, and climate change. Dancing Couple by Albert Coya is the first photograph you encounter when you enter our exhibition. It was also the first work selected and served as the overriding leitmotif for the exhibition. As you will see this evening, the show is organized in respective pairs and groups, very much like dance partners. Dance holds the possibility that virtual strangers might embrace. Recalling the ease with which people once engaged, Coya's photograph alludes to the radical intimacy of individual bodies moving in time together to the same beat. A refugee from Cuba, Albert Coya became the first bilingual staff photographer for the Miami Herald in 1962, where he worked for over 30 years. 6 of his images appear in our exhibition. His photographs deftly combine documentary reportage with surreal perspective, lending his pictures an intriguing remoteness despite their seemingly concrete depiction of actions. And this seemed to us to be also an apt reflection of the process of Art Lab, which of course was organized entirely remotely. We will now move through an overview of the work included in the exhibition. We will not discuss all of the images, but rather will pause briefly on select pairings that individual curators will discuss. And we'll begin now with Mary Jimenez.
Two of the pieces I selected for this exhibition were Untitled Kitchen Sink by Peggy Levinson-Nolan in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 1958 by Gary Winogrand. Originally, when I saw these photographs, I did not anticipate writing about them together. The odd narrative in Winogrand's photo intrigued me. A toddler running down the driveway as another figure stares at them from the shadows, a toppled tricycle, and storm clouds over a mountain range with an enigmatic U carved on its face. Yet, Levinson-Nolan's left me feeling almost unsettled, despite its capturing of a banal moment. While the framed portrait of a child appears fitting, a framed crying child is unusual, somewhere between humor and heartbreak. It wasn't until I was introduced to a text which accompanied Untitled Kitchen Sink that it became extremely compelling to me. The quote, which can be found in the catalog, reads, "Why must we perpetually reinvent ourselves? Whatever could the next new best thing be? What if, repeating the same path over and over, making coffee each morning, looking out the window for birds, feeding the dog and the cat, peering into the bathroom mirror, what if all these reassuring repetitive acts bring us closer to our beating hearts so that every falling strand of hair could be at once old and new? I never remember dreams of flying or falling from great heights or losing my teeth. I remember dreams of looking for car keys, running my fingers over dusty furniture, making coffee and feeding the cat and dog, looking out the window for birds. After reading the artist's words, in particular the last 2 lines, I could not stop thinking about these works. Sometime during this past year of social distancing and solitude, scenes such as these began to annoy me. They reminded me too much of the same reality that I was forced to experience upon waking and relive in what seemed like a never-ending loop in a chapter of my life that I wished desperately to put behind me. However, Levinson Nolan's work served as a sort of admonition or return to reality for me. I felt sad, embarrassed even, that I had lost the sense of beauty in everyday life. I was left questioning my thought process and my reality. These words and these works, which center in the domestic sphere, capture beautiful, intimate moments that oftentimes we let pass by unseen. Moreover, we sadly often fail to recognize these moments as such. After this realization, I spent some time considering the following questions which guided me to write about these 2 pieces, both independently and in conjunction. Why are we so quick to deem things ordinary or extraordinary? Why must some things be considered ordinary? Is there not beauty in repetition? I contend that it is with the inclusion of these moments, these details, that highlight the idiosyncrasies which often pass unseen, that these artists subvert the hierarchy that prizes novelties over normalcy. I'd like to say that it was the pandemic that made me look back on my life with nostalgia, but in reality, the nostalgia was always there, even without the social distance. Both works perfectly encapsulate our curatorial theme of social distance, as these photographs simultaneously capture moments that are not ours, but evoke a latent nostalgia and intrigue, reminding us that despite our separateness from them, we are all interconnected, which, in and of itself, is facilitated by photography, but has been brilliantly captured by these artists. And for those of us who still may long for social interaction in the public sphere, we can partake in the undisclosed secrets of another's quotidian life through the artist's lenses. Thank you.
Hands, a part of the human body we see more than our own face. Hands provide a sense of life, measure, and communication. Through the power of isolation, hands, hand in showcase, and hand in doorway navigate us through our prevalent reality. Distinctiveness is inscribed in our palms while our sentiments are communicated through gesture. Hands have the ability to express emotion that our words and facial expressions cannot. This photographic triptych confronts the need for connection in a time of physical distancing. As Susan Sontag says, essentially the camera makes everyone a tourist in other people's reality, and eventually in one's own. Sontag's writing on photography resonates as I present this triptych today. Hands, hand in showcase, and hand in doorway were captured in the 20th century, but challenge present reality as we navigate through a pandemic. In Melancholy Objects, Susan Sontag says, photography is a surrealist art because it creates a duplicate world, a reality, narrower but more dramatic than the one perceived by natural vision. Melancholy objects are born of distance, and we are able to mourn our reality through photography. The element of touch in each photograph evokes a different emotion. Without the distraction of faces, these images become honest. The eyes may be the window of the soul, but hands reveal our humanity.
So it's Robert Govards here, like Professor Dayak, I was also struck by the quality of Albert Coya's photographs. And the photograph that I wanted to talk about in particular was the undated blind children at the Lincoln Memorial, which was also awarded the National Headliners Club Feature Photo Award. I believe that it's not only very poignant, but that it also contains a wonderful ambiguity. After having looked at this photograph for some time, I noticed that I started to wonder what of the president's facial features stood out to these children. Was it his profound nose or his full eyebrows? And I think about the metaphorical tactile closing of the distance between these children and this historically important figure. What I also think about is that these children's blindness is a metaphor for that large segment of American society's persistent blindness in failing to see the systemic racism and the problems that raises for one of our self-professed ideals, that of equality. And finally, I think about the innocence of these children who do not know what racism is. Because of former President Lincoln's association with the struggle for equality by the African American community, I saw a dialogue with Andy Warhol's Race Riot silkscreen, where Warhol appropriated one of Charles Moore's iconic images of the struggle for civil rights, first published in Life magazine, that depicts police brutality during the race protests in Birmingham, Alabama in the 1960s, and another one of Coya's photographs, this one of President Johnson campaigning in Florida during the lead up to the 1964 presidential election. Especially profound is the distance in time between the abolition of slavery by Lincoln in 1863 and President Johnson signing the Civil Rights Act to end segregation some 100 years later in the mid-1960s, to the current Black Lives Matter movement, which is more than another 50 years later. This temporal distance serves as yet another metaphor for that painstakingly slow process the road to true equality seems to be. The images yesterday on the news after the verdicts in the George Floyd murder case exude hope that the distance between the African American community and white America becomes smaller, creating a stronger sense of us. On the other hand, though, the location of the Lincoln bust in the blind children photograph, which is in the rotunda of the Capitol, reminds us again of the very recent insurrection which took place there, which is arguably the most significant challenge to the American Republic since the Civil War. When one thinks of the numerous white supremacists which took part in this insurrection, in combination with the current political divide, which also spills over into race relations, then we realize again that we still have a long way to go to close the distance between all of who are part of American society to create a stronger sense of us. Vice President Harris acknowledged that there is still a lot of work to be done when she said yesterday after the verdict that a measure of justice isn't the same as equal justice. And President Biden said after the verdict that it is but a step forward in the march to justice. Whilst I can see hope in his words, I also believe there's sadness when you think about his choice of words. I mean, but a step forward. I thought about, is this the best we did after having been at this for the last 160 years? Thank you.
Jorge San's Paraguay Virgin Day celebration showcases an intimate moment of rest shared among event participants. The people featured probably do not know each other, but they are joined together to create a communal and comfortable place to rest. Following my research into the Virgin Day celebration, the accounts I read reminded me of my past experiences at music festivals. Like the people in the image, I would often find myself looking to strangers for support and offering up my own services if needed. The image invoked in me a sense of nostalgia for how common non-limited physical contact was pre-pandemic. Thankfully, due to modern technology, we are still able to connect. The beauty of humanity is our prioritization of collectivism. It has allowed us to survive battles brought forth by nature and battles amongst ourselves. Created shortly after September 11th, 2001, Aaliyah Alba's Doll Heads combines photography and sculpture to create a piece that highlights diversity. The original sculptural installation of Alba's doll heads delineated the heads in two twin tower-shaped clear structures. The faces used were implied to be that of both victims and perpetrators. When one of us suffers, the collective suffers, as there's not much difference or distance between us. The current heightened awareness of inequality and inequity through movements such as Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, and #MeToo has allowed many members of our society to reevaluate their complacency in systemic oppression. The ongoing global pandemic has also forced many to think beyond themselves through their continued use of masks and acceptance of life-saving vaccines. As Robert stated during one of our class meetings, art from different eras often finds a way to relate to the present. Both San's and Alba's work reminded me to appreciate the value of human connection and understanding. It gave me hope that as people, We will be able to continue working towards our greater good.
When choosing photographs for this exhibition, I was first attracted to the Lowe piece that's on the left. It is a serial collection of 72 photographs of various windows mounted on cardboard made in 1980. I was intrigued by the way it served as some kind of collection of mementos or gathering of stories, with each pane of glass encasing a life behind it. This work gave me the same feeling that some of you may have also experienced when driving on a highway, surrounded by so many other cars, realizing that all of them hold within them different people with their own vivid and complex lives. The windows that Lowe has captured may be individually meaningful to some people, but to most viewers, they're just an anonymous facade of the lives of others. Lowe was influential in the minimalist and conceptual art movements, and a lot of his work, like this one, explores the concept that the idea and process behind a work is just as, if not more important than, the final outcome. To pair with the Lowe, I chose this Teresa Deal piece on the right. Photographed in 2007, I thought Untitled was the perfect complement, both aesthetically and conceptually, to windows. Most of Deal's work delves into the boundary between intimacy and discomfort, and between public and private. Her more popular works include video montages and sound, but this up-close image of a mouth blowing a bubble still compellingly invokes the senses. The intimacy of being in the subject's personal space, with just the thin membrane of the bubble as a separation, edges on discomfort. The knowledge that this bubble, encasing within it a stranger's breath, can burst at any moment, provides us an unsettling experience and reminds us of the precarious bubbles that separate us. When considering both works in conjunction with one another, Windows offers us a very shallow peek into the private lives of others, while Untitled puts us into an intimate space with the subject, with only a translucent separation. Although we are separated both through the distance of photography, removed from these situations by a lens, and also virtually because of the nature of this exhibition, both photographs still seem like invasions of privacy. One presents a heavy physical boundary and lets us ponder over the discrepancy between our own private lives and those of others, while the other makes us feel the distance, or lack thereof, shared with a stranger.
Two of the photographs I had chose were Luis Gonzalez Palma's The Strategy That Unites Us and Manuel Alvarez Bravo's How Small the World Is. I was initially drawn to Luis Gonzalez Palma's photograph, The Strategy That Unites Us, because it was reminiscent to me of mine and also many others' experience at the beginning of the past year, being alone in my room only with my thoughts and looking back on memories with friends and family, but not being able to see them. Palma has been described as being intrigued by the human perceptions of the world. Here, he is presenting us the relationship between solitude and interactions with others. The woman in the scene is sitting alone, but she has all of these portraits of others surrounding her, suggesting that she keeps these shared memories close. This resonates with the situation of the past year, where in the alienation of quarantine, reflecting upon past memories was able to create a connective force, keeping people together while apart. And the second photograph, Manuel Alvarez Bravo's How Small the World Is, captures this fleeting moment between strangers passing in the street. I was drawn to this photograph and liked the idea of pairing it with the Palma because I felt it exemplified how a feeling of isolation can move past a moment of being actually physically alone and into a space in public. Though these individuals are in public, they do not acknowledge one another and they may never cross paths again in the future. But in this moment, they are together, sharing the sidewalk, and exemplify how small the world can feel when existing in the same space as others, especially with strangers. These photographs together call to mind the various social connections and disconnections that exist regardless of your proximity to others.
Polar Circle left and El Sol on the right are both by Alfredo Di Stefano. Global issues concerning climate change and the mismanagement of our planet's resources are at the forefront of conceptual artist Alfredo Di Stefano's work as he travels around the planet to photograph desertscapes. In Polar Circle, in the desert, Di Stefano shows an intervention in a natural space. Arranged in a circle, blocks of ice melt from the heat of the sun. As time passes on, the space between each block will grow, ultimately resulting in its complete disappearance. This temporary sculptural installation acts as a kind of performance piece, mocking our faulty relationship with the earth. In El Sol, the image on the right, is reminiscent of an extraterrestrial scene, uninhabitable by humankind. The expansive desert creates an overwhelming sense of time and space as a backdrop. In El Sol, Di Stefano uses found rocks to situate in the circle, a recurring image in his work, to recreate a harmony between the sculpture and the environment. I feel this could be wishful vision of a world where humanity lives in balance with nature. Though more realistically, I feel this is perhaps a grim representation in which humankind exists only as a fossilized record. With desertscapes aside, both images center on a circle, a universal symbol with an array of meanings in different cultures around the globe. Wholeness, connection, eternity, to name a few. People often form circles when they come together. They create a safe place for us to tell each other our stories. We even describe ourselves as being in our family, friend, and social circles. They represent us and the communities we live in. However, internal and external forces cause stresses on our communities. As we enter the second year of a global pandemic, community strengths are being tested. Poor leadership and the lack of people's willingness to participate expose the gaps in our communities and cause them to fall apart. Environmental factors also create stresses. While moving forward through the pandemic, unresolved tensions with the relationship with our planet continue to produce undesirable environmental changes, including drought, longer fire seasons, desertification, and more recently, increasingly powerful hurricanes. Situations such as the recent power outages in California from wildfires and in Texas from severe winter storms expose our shared fragility and our inescapable interdependence on the environment.
The artist Carrie Mae Weems holds pride of place with our final photograph in the exhibition. Seen here, Untitled, from her Constructing History series, it echoes the formal circle structure that Anthony has just described. We see an allegory which images and imagines intersectional healing, allyship, and community. We're going to close now with a brief walk through the virtual exhibition led by Christina Larson.
All right, thank you, Professor Dayak, and thank you to each of the student curators for your perspectives and insights into the pairings of the photographs that you so carefully chose for this exhibition. We're not going to spend a lot of time in the virtual exhibition, but I did want to introduce the audience to it. So to get to the virtual exhibition, today is the launch. This is kind of like our opening reception, but virtually. Maybe you have a glass of wine while you're, watching this program. But anyway, so you go to lowe.miami.edu, then exhibitions, then current, upcoming, and click here to experience. And this is a screenshot, so this is not live, but I'm going to go to the live version now. So bear with me. All right, so this is the Art Steps platform. This is what Professor Dayak, her students, and my colleague, Professor Dr. Mark Osterman, worked on together. So in place of a physical exhibition, it's virtual. So I'm going to enter full screen. So it looks a little bit better. Let's see. Okay, there we go. And I think Mark told me I could open the door. So let's see, I might just go to the guide point instead. So there's, let's see. You can, that's a little bit creepy, but you can gesture that way. But these are your controls, and you can take a guided tour, basically what you just witnessed, in tonight's program, but the virtual version. So I'm going to go to the next guide point. And this is the opening wall. So you can see, this lovely title for the exhibition, and then along with the curatorial vision for the exhibition and the curatorial team that worked on it. So, so here you can sort of enter into the room, but your friend is basically this next guide point. So that'll get you back on track. And so we've already looked at the Albert Coya, which is sort of as Professor Dayak said, the model, or sort of something that they kept referencing in their concepts for the exhibition. And we saw this, Mary gave us a very beautiful interpretation of this pairing. So I'm going to skip over that. But Professor Dayak, do you want to talk about this pairing here, since we're in the exhibition?
Well, I won't say too much about it. I mean, one of the things that that you might notice when you look at these sets is the formal echo between the two, but I don't want to give away too much, and I know we don't have too much time to get into too much detail. But one of the strategies that we decided to undertake in the show was to have very little text on the actual walls. It's in fact a very text-heavy show, but it's entirely embedded inside the image, and you have to click on it. Each image, if you click on it, you will reveal information about that work on its own. But then in between each set, you see this marked word "us" that's highlighted in coral, and if you click on that, you get kind of dialogue about the works together.
All right, so let's just practice that just for fun. So I'll go ahead and click on this image. So here you get the text, is what Professor Dayak was saying. You get a more up close view of the image, and you can make the image much larger with the little box. So this is just a tutorial. So if you want, later this evening, look some more, explore some more, you can. Let's see. Oops. I'll go back. So like I said, these are your friends, these little tools down here. So next I'm going to click on us. And so this is what you're talking about, right, Professor Dayak? This is more of a about how these two images relate to one another. Is that right?
Yeah, precisely. And so that shows up with every set. And so when you look through the show, you see that it's organized in these kind of groupings that are in conversation with one another.
Very good.
And it's nice to be able to zoom in on the image as well to get it. So that's great.
So basically, just for the audience, like I said, the little tools are your friend. You just kind of go to the next guide point. You can sort of use your mouse to walk around the exhibition as you please, but it's a little bit cleaner or a little bit easier just to use these. And then in this little arrow here has the list of all the artists that were in the exhibition. So I think, is that enough, Professor Dayak? Enough teaser, people can kind of—
I think so. Do you want to just click through a couple more guide points just to get into the larger space of the room? to get a sense of the scale?
Sure.
Great.
Is that good?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Christina. And,
Yeah,
and again, big shout out to Mark.
All right, so we'll go back to the PowerPoint. And now I think it's time we can have a question and answers for Professor Dayak and for the students. All right, so I'm reading the chat now. This is from, let's see, sorry, it's hard to have multiple windows open. Let's see.
I think it's a question for Avani.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. I wasn't sure her last name. So yes, Avani.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah. Do you see the chat, or do you want me to?
So it's a question about your pairings and the visual perspectives that happened from simply close inspection and then sitting back, viewing from afar, and then again. And so the question is whether you can comment on that kind of going back and forth between them.
Right, of course. So because everything we did for this exhibition was virtual, it was kind of difficult to have that kind of tangible looking back and forth, like from close and from far. And I'm a painter, so that's something that I'm used to doing, like viewing a piece close and then standing back kind of to gain perspective on it. But I actually didn't get a chance to do this until we had the whole exhibition put together, and then like physically being able to zoom out. So there's not much that I was able to look at that like from that lens while picking these photographs out. It was kind of difficult to do that. But now that I've looked at it in the exhibition, it does have a different kind of play when you look at it from far. I think visually they look, the colors and aesthetics are similar for the two images. So when you look at them from far, they look like they complement each other very well.
Very good. Thanks, Ebony. My colleague Jody Cipher had a question for you all. She's a curator of education at the Lowe. She said, "Great job, everyone." She's wondering if Professor Dayak or the students might talk about something you have learned in creating a virtual exhibition. So what's your takeaway? What did you learn?
Anyone?
Yeah, I think it's been a really great experience, and the idea of it being virtually has, I mean, it's pretty new to me, so it feels like it has like initial drawbacks, but then once you get your hands in it, the benefits of it are, we're going to have this on the website forever, so potentially more people are going to be able to see this in the future than they would have in the past, which I think is really great. It also has made me kind of learn more about creating the space, and it is easy, and why not just create a, I hope to use it for my own work just as like a simple rotating gallery for myself. While I might not have a physical space for that, this platform is perfect for it, for all my friends or anybody to join just simply by clicking on their computer. So I think it's really great.
Yeah, I had a great experience doing it as well, and I must admit that now that we've been in lockdown for quite a while, I cannot wait to see an exhibition in the flesh again, to be able to walk around. But at the same time, it also made me realize that it's actually a fantastic tool because we simply cannot be everywhere all the time. So, if this becomes more usual and more common all across the world, it just gives us a great opportunity to experience exhibitions everywhere we cannot go when it's not convenient or we don't have time.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. We have a question from Nadia, and she says, beautiful show. She wonders if any of the curators found themselves taking pictures of the ordinary or finding new beauty in what we see as the banal, or the mundane, which one of the student curators commented on. So has it changed the way you approach your own personal photography?
I could comment on that question. So I know for me, after looking through all the images for this exhibition, it inspired me to pick up my film camera, which I hadn't used in like 5 years. Like the last time I used it was in high school. And basically I found myself picking it up as a hobby again and taking photos of random things in my apartment, or I don't know, just things on the balcony, just things that I wouldn't have really paid attention to before. So yeah, I do agree that this working on this exhibition forced me to find beauty in things that I wouldn't really have found beauty in before.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Anybody else want to comment?
Sure, yeah, I can comment on that. I'm not really a photographer. I'm definitely more a painter and a designer. So I usually have always taken photographs at face value, and I've done a lot of art history with like conceptual works, but haven't really gone into photography as much as I did this semester. So not only like was I able to see the beauty in the mundane, but being able to appreciate the art of photography a little bit more, and how there is social distance already implicated into photography, which was a topic we discovered a lot, and how photographers are often removed from the situations that they're capturing. That was something that I really learned this semester.
Thanks for that, Ebony. I have a question. What were some of the challenges? We've talked about sort of the benefits of a virtual exhibition, but what were some of the challenges that you faced in creating this virtual exhibition together this semester?
I'm trying to stay silent because I want to let the students say as much as possible. I would say that on the one hand, this virtual medium has been incredibly helpful and opened up all kinds of new possibilities in terms of access as described, but it definitely was challenging. I mean, challenging just in terms of even communicating with each other, you know, having limited time frames to be working with one another, to be doing it over Zoom, to have, you know, incredible Zoom fatigue, to be looking at these photographs starting at tiny JPEGs, which, as you know, Avani described, we didn't really get to see them with the clarity that you can see them now in the installation while we were working on them, or even while we were talking about them and writing about them, there were all these new layers that kept coming. So I would say there were many challenges along the way, but again, these curators really rose to the task.
All right, thanks, Professor Dayak. How about from the students? Anybody want to comment on things that you found challenging, or things that you were able to overcome?
I think that there's also sort of that early sense of letdown that it's not going to be in a physical space. For those that like really like to go to the museums or the galleries and put those exhibitions kind of higher up on a pedestal. I think, but overcoming that is, you know, you have to have it in a virtual gallery. So I think once you kind of come to terms with that, you just go with it, and it is what it is. And then you see all the other benefits to it, like we had talked about earlier.
I think the question that's on there now is interesting.
Yeah, go ahead with that question. I was just going to say we have time for that question.
With such fast holdings of photography, how did the group narrow down their initial search for images relevant to the theme? Yeah, exactly. I think we all were given kind of a select 10 photographs that speak to you the most. I can speak for myself that in selecting those photographs, I must admit that I initially looked for ones that appealed to me instinctively, and then kind of tried to see how you know, they could fit in the theme of the exhibition. One of the comments, one of the guest curators during our talk, David Campany, he said, one mistake you should not make is try to shoehorn work into the theme of an exhibition. You know, and that's of course easier said than done, I think, but still it's a very good warning. But I also know, for example, others in our group, not that I want to speak for them, but they, you know, what their processes were, but I think many of us selected the initial batch based on what appealed to us, I think instinctively.
It was also pretty fascinating to see the overlaps, right? Because actually out of all of these images, there were a number of works that were recurring across selections from various, you know, members of the class. So that was... Anthony, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and I think there's another question specifically for me as well, but I'll read that in a second. But yeah, I do feel the same as what Robert had said. I'm from the western desert of the United States. The two images that I just talked about struck me instantly. I couldn't not pick them. You know, it's a scenery that I'm familiar with, that I would see all the time. And it's something that I miss, especially from coming from that desert scape to here in Miami, to a place that's, I mean, it's 11 times the population density of my hometown. Like, to kind of see that in front of me is kind of a, yeah, I just really miss it. But then how fitting could it be? Like we had 10 images each, and then we kind of dwindled it down, and those ones just kept coming back. So I know that there's sort of that idea of maybe shoehorning something into a context, but at the end of the day, it's like we chose ones that, or I feel like I chose ones that were fitting. And again, like how fitting are you in the middle of the desert with like a forced social distancing, a forced isolation, when in the horizon your communities are just beyond. And yeah, it just keeps, you know, speaking to me as we delve into them.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Anthony. And then another question was just, you know, sort of relating those images to Mars' seemingly desert-like environment, the photos that we're getting from Mars. Do you want to comment on that too?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, even the artist had spoken about the communities that live and thrive in those deserts, and how those extreme scenarios and places might lead them to becoming stronger people, and maybe they're the only ones that are going to be left after such pandemics kind of roll through. But yeah.
Very good, thank you. Professor Dayak, did you have any comments to wrap up?
My only comment to wrap up is just to say how impressed I am with this group, and to thank them again and say how proud I am of each of you. Each of you has contributed to this in such a unique and personal way, and it's been wonderful to work with you. So that's all I have to say.
Very good, thank you, Professor Dayak. Next, we'll segue connecting with you. So as I mentioned towards the beginning of the program, we really do want to hear from you about tonight's program. So, so let's see, I think we can put the link in the chat, or you can use the QR code, or just promise that you'll open your email tomorrow, because we'll send a survey that way too. And in a second, I'll put the link in the chat. So just a reminder, we really do want to connect with you and hear from you. So, and
I guess one of the other downsides of the virtual exhibition opening is that we can't hear each other, right? Like, I would love to have an ovation, you know, and some applause for the students. So I hope you can feel that if you can't hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just wanted to thank again, Professor Dayak, to the student curators, to my Lowe colleagues, and to all of you in the audience for coming to tonight's program. So we hope that you'll explore the exhibition catalog when that is released, and also the online exhibition Art Steps, and just have fun with that. So thank you for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you next month, May 13th, for the next Lowe Connects last Leonardo program. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. There will be a virtual catalog.
Yes, virtual catalog.